If you are with an emotionally unavailable partner, or have been, and you haven't quite got the lesson yet about you, and you want to look in the mirror and you want to dig deep, because that's what we do here at the Relationship School, we have reworked one of our courses into a group coaching experience. It's called End the Struggle with Him, Roadmap and Monthly Group Coaching Membership. And it's super affordable, $49 a month, and we would love you to come check it out. If you still continue to attract emotionally unavailable partners, if you're like, what is this about me? It's loaded with value. There's live group coaching. There's several courses in there. It's worth well over $3,000, this experience. And even in there is the letter, commentary on the letter my wife wrote to me after our second breakup that ultimately had me put 2 feet into the relationship. So this is super cool, and I want you to come check it out. Okay. relationshipschool.com/ESH roadmap. ESH roadmap. And I look forward to seeing you in there. Welcome to the show, Brian Johnson.
Jayson, I am thrilled to be here. Good to see you.
Yeah, great to see you, man. Dude, I'm really psyched to get into your new book, Arete. So we'll talk plenty about that and the sort of mission you're on. That's really bold and very inspiring from over here. But first, I'm curious, how do you introduce yourself these days? When people ask, what do you do and who are you?
That's a good question. I've heard, tell me about your origin story and all those things, Yeah, I mean, so many things arise, frankly. I'm a proud dad. Just watched my son play some chess. He played against his hero. He gets to play him online, and he did so well. So that's alive. My daughter's, doing some drawing right now, just hanging out with my wife in the morning. So I'm a proud husband and father. I'm also a dedicated philosopher and teacher and CEO. So kind of a combination of my 2 favorite heroes back there is what I aspire to be, Epictetus and Marcus Aurelius. So, part philosopher, part CEO, and all in on helping create a world in which 51% of humanity is flourishing by 2051. Details obviously underneath all that, but that's what arises in the moment.
Yeah, amazing. I'm really curious because I've followed you for a while. I believe I was on the Zad's platform many years ago that you started, or when it got sold to Gaiam, or before, somewhere in there I was on participating, and I've read your philosopher's notes. So I've tracked you off and on over the years, and we have some mutual friends. So it's been really fun to watch your evolution over the years. And I'm so curious, like one of my biggest questions is, how did you and when did you get onto the personal development path?
Yeah, so it's a great question. I mean, the technical answer to that probably would be I was recruited at a leadership event in college for a large professional services firm, and I was introduced to Stephen Covey and read 7 Habits. But before that, I'm the youngest of 5 kids, lower middle class family, devout Catholic. Dad worked in a grocery store for 39 years, struggled with alcohol. His dad struggled with alcohol, ended his own life. And my joke is I appeared to have lost both the genetic and environmental lottery on that one. I struggle with my own challenges after dropping out of law school as a 22, 23-year-old. So it's this interesting hybrid of like a lot of suffering in my life and in my kind of family of origin. And again, in my own personal life, knowing what it feels like to want to end my own life. I've been there. Mm-hmm. Thankfully, it's 5 years in the rearview mirror now, but I know what that feels like. And I've also always had a hunger to figure out what it is that makes truly extraordinary people extraordinary, who make a significant impact in the world. And then that's evolved over the decades, but have done so with integrity, with virtue, and with joy. So I don't know what the actual impulse was behind that, but I've just always had a hunger to understand life and to help other people figure out how they can live a life of meaning and joy. And then you weave in my own suffering and knowing what it feels like to feel that. And also now knowing what it feels like to perform at a high level and what I did to go from there to there, has been kind of an interesting mix,
Yeah. Was there any ever resistance in you to, as a young man or old adolescent boy, however you want to, whenever the timing was, to get help, to like raise your hand and say, I need help, and try to find a mentor, a therapist? Or did you sort of slowly on your own find, okay, I've got Stephen Covey's book and I'm just going to start learning myself? Like, curious.
It's a great question again. These days I'm super coachable, and I'm blessed to have worked with Phil Stutz now for a long time. And, but that's a whole other conversation. It's hard to find someone that you really trust, that you really want to be with. Before, my big problem, I think, back in the day was I certainly didn't look for help. And I was certain that I was the only one on the planet that had my issues. Mm-hmm. So the whole idea of common humanity, rule number one of self-compassion, I had none of that. So when I'm spiraling out after dropping out of law school, I literally thought I was the only one who was suffering. And before that, I was just this super anxious kid, scared of everything. And I thought I was the only one that was scared of everything. And so it's a big part of what I try to share is you're not alone. All the people you admire feel the exact same things you feel, period. And they've learned to work with that discomfort. And here's how you may want to consider doing the same. But I didn't seek out help, Part of me didn't know I needed help when I was young. It was just something was catastrophically wrong. And I couldn't see beyond, half an inch from where I was. And then the despair came in, and all the other things. So then as I've systematically immersed myself, my way of gaining more wisdom was reading. So Stephen Covey, Dan Millman, Paulo Coelho, as a young man, Tony Robbins, these guys definitely gave me the agency, to know that I could do something constructive with my life, and then systematically architected it. But it wasn't until like maybe 10 years ago, 12 years ago that I actually started working with a coach, and now I've done 400 one-on-one sessions with Phil Stutz over the last 7 years. So now I'm like all in, give me all the coaching I can get, But there's definitely a stigma. It was like before stigma, you know what I mean? Like,
right.
Even aware that that was a pathway that I could explore.
Yeah. Wow. I love hearing that. It's so interesting. Yeah. You're obviously a voracious reader. So your new book is, God, almost 900 something pages, almost 1,000 pages. And it's like a brick of a book. Like, I think it's Bible-ish of personal growth material here. Like I think this is a great new book for me to refer people to the personal development journey of like getting on the path. And here's some amazing ancient wisdom packed in really small bites that are very digestible. So I'm just super appreciative that you went out and got all that information and you synthesized it for us. It's really, really powerful. My son has a copy and he started reading it a week or two ago, and he's into it. He's 14 and he's psyched, especially because you open the book with, conversations with your son. So that I think there's a real relatability for him that makes it accessible. It's really cool.
Goosebumps, dude. Just to pause for a moment, that means so much to me. Just to hear dads in particular talk about that, to be able to connect to your son. I've got some other friends whose sons have kind of picked it up on their own and just gotten into it, or dads that are reading it at night now with their kids. Like, I hadn't anticipated that. I wanted to make it easy to read for all of us while still having a density to it and a gravitas to it, hopefully, and all that. But to be able to capture your son's attention, man, gives me tears in my eyes. Like, I dedicate the book to you, the hero we've been waiting for, and then to the heroic families. Raising the next generation of heroes is how I think we're going to most fundamentally, impact the world.
Absolutely. Yeah. And so many of us parents need to really look hard in the mirror about how we're doing that. And this is another resource for that. So, yeah. Okay. So let's just kind of zoom out and talk about your 7 sort of principles. I can't remember if you call it principles or 7
objectives,
which are huge. Will you just name them? And then I want to kind of drill down into a couple of those. And then I have some kind of rapid fire questions maybe that we can end with around some of the chapters. I mean, but maybe, just outline these 7 objectives.
Okay, cool. And then to frame it up real quick, I've spent half of the last 25 years as a founder CEO, built and sold 2 social platforms, the other half as a philosopher teacher. I've been just relentlessly studying ancient wisdom and modern science, and trying to understand how you can apply that wisdom to your modern life. We've trained 10,000 coaches in using these 7 objectives that I'll walk through now. The book is basically a reflection of that. But the 7 objectives are: number 1, you got to know the ultimate game. Number 2, you got to forge anti-fragile confidence. Number 3, you want to optimize the big 3: energy, work, and love. Number 4, you need to make today a masterpiece. Number 5, you need to master yourself, the art and science of behavioral change. Number 6, dominate the fundamentals: eating, moving, sleeping, breathing, and focusing. And when you do that, you activate your superpower, which is objective 7. We call it soul force. It's the power all heroes have in common that you have latent within you. Those are the 7 objectives, and just excited to go wherever you want in that.
Yeah, so cool. Okay. So when I saw you speak in Toronto recently, I was really, there was some moments of just laughing out loud about a few things you said. And then really just like, hell yes, when you said things. So maybe we can start with, for some reason, I want to start with the anti-fragile confidence. Explain that. What does that mean?
Goosebumps again, dude. So that's my favorite part of the book. Yeah, I mean, so we talked about it. I just spoke with the U.S. men's national team yesterday. This is what I talked to them about. So the most elite performers that I work with, this is what we come back to all the time. So anti-fragile confidence, the objective is forge anti-fragile confidence. Now, the subtitle to Arate is activate your heroic potential. So activate is a key word, and I'm going to bring it to forge. Then we'll define anti-fragile and confidence. Okay. So first, you need to activate. So activation energy is a scientific phrase where one thing becomes another thing. So if you want to boil water, you need to get to 212 degrees. Nothing happens until you get to precisely 212 degrees, and everything changes. If you want to ignite a fire, you have to get to 451 degrees. And it's my opinion that in the modern world, there's a certain level of like cynicism where it's cool to be a bit cynical, a bit nihilistic, and not intense, not all in on life. Mm-hmm. But Joseph Campbell quoted Sri Ramakrishna, who said, don't approach, I don't like the word enlightenment, frankly, but don't approach being your best self unless you approach it with the intensity of a man whose hair is on fire. You need to be all in. You need to be activated. You need to get to 451 degrees, which is why there are 451 micro chapters. But anyway, 451 isn't enough. Then you need to enter the forge. If you want to forge a sword, and this is what I told the national team last night, goosebumps. If you want to forge a sword and they want to win a World Cup in 2026, all right, cool. 451 isn't, you certainly need to get to 451, obviously. 2,200 degrees is what it takes to make a forge. So you got to forge anti-fragile confidence, showing up with intensity, and then anti-fragility is the opposite of being fragile. So we all know about resilience, but resilience isn't the opposite of fragile. It's slightly better than being fragile. So if you're fragile, you're like a package that you write, handle me with care. If COVID happens, I might break. If I have a job challenge or a health challenge or a relationship challenge, I'm probably going to spiral out and do all the vicious things that I know I shouldn't be doing, whether it's binge drinking or binge eating or binge watching. I'm fragile. If you're resilient, you can handle pressure. Then you break down and then you bounce back a little faster than most. But there's something that's the opposite of being fragile. Nassim Taleb coined the word anti-fragile to capture the idea of being a package. And on your package, you write, throw me around because I'm going to get stronger the more I face challenges. So that's anti-fragility. And then to pull it to confidence, and then I'll talk about how to practically do this. Confidence, and Nassim Taleb says that the wind will extinguish a candle, but that same wind will fuel a fire. That's how he makes the point. So you got to know which one you are and be a fire. Now, confidence, etymologically, confidere, it means intense trust. Intense trust in yourself that you have what it takes to respond to what life throws at you. Now, if you want to create trust in any relationship, right, you need to do what you say you're going to do. If I didn't show up for our time today, maybe you'd give me one pass, but if I didn't do it again, you wouldn't trust me and you shouldn't trust me. You wouldn't have confidence in me. Now, if I, as a man or a woman for that matter, anyone, obviously, if I'm saying I'm going to do things, whether it's meditation or movement or eating a certain way or being with my kids without my phone, whatever it is, I say I'm going to do it and I don't do it. Every single time I don't do that, I erode my trust in myself. And you shouldn't have, to be blunt, a lot of confidence. Now, stated positively, when you do what you say you will do, you cultivate confidence and trust. So then you put it together, anti-fragile confidence. And the final thought is my coach, Phil Stutz, calls it emotional stamina. And he says the way you build emotional stamina, that I now call anti-fragile confidence, is the worse you feel, the more committed you are to your protocol. Yeah. So when you get hit, when the wind goes up, what do? That's when you need to double down in your protocol, which presupposes you have one. But that's anti-fragile confidence in a big nutshell. It's frankly my obsession, because if you get even 3, 5, 10% better at this, you change your life completely. Because the things that used to destroy you make you stronger, and it's exhilarating to feel. And I love the fact that you went straight there, because it's my darling, and I love it.
Yeah, it's so good, because I think there's a lot of fragilizing going on out in the world. And I notice, in privileged folks like myself here in Boulder, Colorado, there can be a fragilizing of our kids, right? Kids can't handle life or something. We've got to protect them from the mean world. And I have a little bit of that in me, right? I've got oh shit, it's dark out there. It's intense, which I know doesn't promote anti-fragile confidence. So what would you say to parents who feel scared for their kids in this wild world we're living around this? Like, what can a parent say to their kid? What can a parent do with their kid to promote this?
Yep. I love it, dude. So we named our son Emerson after Ralph Waldo Emerson, who's on my wall up there. He's one of my heroes. So he says, who you are speaks so loudly, I cannot hear what you say. So, again, parents can say what they want, but their kids are listening with every single moment.
All day, every day.
So my advice to parents is, are you living with wisdom, discipline, love, courage, gratitude, hope, curiosity, zest? Are you conquering the fear and laziness that I talk about in the book? Because you're modeling all day, every day, that which you are going to be teaching your kids to embrace. So, but my number one parenting resource is Mindset by Carol Dweck. Fixed mindset versus growth mindset.
Such a good book.
So, dude, in that book, she says, every time you as a parent face a challenge, rub your hands together and say, I love hard things. I have goosebumps. Again, I have done that an obnoxious number of times. Mm-hmm. So, I just launched the book, right? We've got like 101 reviews right out the gate, 100 of them 5 stars, 1 2-star. And I go straight to the 2-star. Oh, shoot, I suck. The book's terrible, and I go through the stages of creative grief. You know what I mean? I'm like, oh, I'm sad. I'm terrible. To, whatever angry. To, oh, I kind of feel bad for you, dude. Really? Anyway, I go outside and I'm like, hey, guys, super stoked, all this. And I got my first 2-star review, and I said, how do you think that feels in my body? And my son says, oh, you probably felt your heart going and your body kind of clenched. I'm like, yeah, we're talking about fear all the time and what you do with it. And my daughter says, yeah, you probably felt sad and mad. And I said, that's exactly what I felt in that order. Mm-hmm. And then she says, I don't think someone should be able to write a comment about a book. And she's 6 years old, unless they've written a book themselves. To which I said, you're absolutely right. Because if they've gone through the process, they just won't be that mean-spirited about it. And, blah, 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 blah. But I'm constantly using my own challenges as opportunities to teach these ideas. Mm-hmm. And the fact that it's only through going through the pain and the uncertainty and doing the hard work that we can grow. But I'm always using those examples, of how I feel when I'm doing things and I make mistakes and all that. But I think the modeling is so important. And then not preaching and telling, but using yourself and your life and your shortcomings as a demonstration for the values you hope they aspire to live.
Yo. As you know, I've dedicated my life to helping people with their relationships, right? I want to solve this problem so that all of you can work through your differences and have fulfilling, amazing, badass partnerships and relationships, family, coworkers, friends, whoever. And I have trained a ton of relationship coaches, almost 100 certified relationship coaches, to help you specifically work through your relationship challenges. So I want to invite you to a special deal we're offering to the podcast listener where you can get 50% off your first month of coaching with one of our amazing relationship coaches. Okay, if you're tired of therapy, it feels like that's going around in a circle, or you want to actually set goals and accomplish your relationship goals, hire a relationship coach. Okay, go to relationshipschool.com/get coaching now, and then use the coupon code FIRST50 to get the 50% deal off your first month of relationship coaching. Super psyched to have our amazing coaches serve you and help you get to the next level. Maybe now's a good time we can talk about sidestepping lizards versus slaying dragons. You said that, and that was one of the things I laughed out loud at, and I thought it was so good. Will you unpack what you mean that in life we need to slay our dragons, not sidestep lizards?
Yeah, it's so good. So I tattooed my body with heroic, and then the other arm is arete, right? So I happen to be in the
means excellence. Is that right?
I should have defined it. So arete is it's the one word answer the ancient Stoics and Greeks would give if you asked them how to live a good life. So Aurelius, Seneca, Epictetus, Aristotle, Plato, Socrates. How do we live a good life? Arete. Literally one word answer.
Got it.
The word translates as excellence or virtue, but means something closer to being your best self, moment to moment to moment. And I like to say, if you're capable of being this, you're actually being that. And there's a gap between who you could have been in the moment, not who you think you should have been over 25 years, but in this moment. If there's a gap, that's where regret, anxiety, disillusionment, depression exists. It's more nuanced than that, of course, but it's also that simple. When you close the gap, you live with arete, you experience a deep sense of joy and meaning, which the Greeks called the summum bonum, the greatest good of life, eudaimonia. Anyway, that's arete, but bring us back to the question. Got so excited about that, I forgot where you wanted to go next.
Sidestepping lizards versus slaying dragons.
All right, cool. So then I happened to be in a documentary on the hero's journey called Finding Joe, that Gio, our mutual friend and how we met in Toronto, loved and created his film in part inspired by. But when a hero goes on a quest, first they have to go on the quest. So there's three parts to a hero's journey. And we're trying to operationalize this in the book and in our app, in our platform. So the hero gets a call to adventure, but nothing happens until the hero answers the call to adventure. And that basically means you're dissatisfied with your current life, right? But you got to pay attention to that. And you got to know that the world is asking for more from you, whether that's in your work, your love, or your health or whatever. But anyway, you answer the call, you get a guide, you get buddies, and then what happens? Phase 2, you face dragons. It's supposed to be hard is rule number 1 of a good life. And we've been seduced to play the wrong game. And then we've been seduced to think it should be easy. So you're not sidestepping lizards, you're battling dragons. But then as you go through the cycle enough times, you quit battling the dragons, you learn to tame them. They're still dragons, you need to be mindful of them. And they're going to get a lot of claws trying to tame them, but then you learn how to ride them. And that fear, that discomfort we feel when we're at our edge, knowing we're doing what we're here to do, but taking healthy risks, you use that energy for your growth. But those dragons are supposed to be there. It's like going to the gym. You don't lift styrofoam weights. You lift real weights. Well, those challenges you have in life are your real weights in your soul gym, as I talk about it in the book. But I love that line too. And I love that you're highlighting like some of my absolute favorite themes, because I get a kick out of that one every time I say it too. It's supposed to be hard, guys.
It's supposed to be hard. It's just that simple reminder and like the rubbing the hands together and say, I'm doing something hard. I'm psyched. I think people have in this culture, particularly in America, have a real aversion to hard things, and we want easy, we want free, we want medication that just takes pain away instead of using our pain to make a journey, right? So talk about this dominate the fundamentals piece, because I think that'll help us also slay our dragons. Like what do you mean by the fundamentals? What does dominate mean?
Yeah, well, dominate means to rule over, is what the actual word means etymologically. So to dominate is to rule over. Then the fundamentals, I'm a huge fan of John Wooden, coach, greatest coach of all time, according to different sources. I'm a UCLA guy, so I especially appreciate him. Won 10 championships in 12 years with the Bruins. Took him decades to get to that point, which people usually forget. Took him forever to figure out how to win. Then he won forever. And that's an important distinction as we continue to evolve. He was, I'm 49. I think he was like 52 when he won his first championship. He'd coached forever. Anyway, wow. The first thing he taught his players, and this is Lou Alcindor before he became Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, Bill Walton, the greatest athletes of that era, he wouldn't let them touch a basketball until he taught them how to put on their socks. He was all about the most basic fundamentals. And I like to say, if you want to see how tall a building is going to be, look at how deeply they're digging the foundation. So the great ones don't take fundamentals for granted. So we talk about that a lot. We obsess about that. Greatness is, in whatever way you define that word, spiritually, psychologically, as a parent or as an entrepreneur or whatever, it's consistency on the fundamentals. We have 5 of them in our work: eating, moving, sleeping, breathing, and focusing your mind. Now, as a guy that struggled as much as I did, this is it. This is non-negotiable for me. Your physiology drives way more of your psychology than you think. Mm-hmm. Your gut produces 80, 85, 90% of your body's serotonin. Yet you're not going to a psychiatrist who's prescribing eliminating sugary drinks and refined foods and things that are disrupting your underlying physiology, which is driving your psychology. So it's a really important thing that I come back to again and again and again. Those are the fundamentals. And again, this is my obsession, just getting underneath it and doing the mundane, unsexy, basic things with that intensity we're talking about and consistency and making the connection. This is another parenting thing. My kids, we've been blessed, they've never taken an antibiotic, 6 and 11 now, and they don't like getting a runny nose or sick. So we'll say, all right, let's make the connection. If you do this, then that happens. Oh, all right, cool. I'm not going to tell you what you need to do, but obviously I'm a parent and I'm going to do my job, but if this, then that. So they have this connection that if I do this, then I feel that. I like to feel a certain way. Therefore, I'm going to do the things that help me feel that way. And the fundamentals are fundamental to our flourishing and activating our heroic potential. And it's also controllable. It's hard to figure out your purpose. It's hard to get your relationship dialed in. It's considerably, quote, less hard to figure out what you're going to put in your body, how you're going to eat, how you're going to move, how you're going to sleep. And as you do that, you gain confidence and you gain just a psychological stability to approach the harder things in life. And that's why we come back to that again and again and again and again.
Yeah, over and over. I mean, it seems like the science supports that too, that if we could just do those fundamentals like exercise a few times a week, eat well, whole foods versus processed foods, for example, and get a good night's sleep. I mean, that alone, people know now that will greatly impact your mental health in a positive way, right? And it's amazing how many people don't do that.
It's astonishing. And again, but it's exciting because when you do start doing that, even 1 more hour of sleep, that's one of the places I go first. I can change your life overnight. You can change your life overnight. Get 1 more hour of sleep. Most people get less than the recommended 7 to 8 hours of sleep a night. But your odds of being able to do that from a genetic mutation of some kind are 1 in 11,000, the same as the odds of you being struck by lightning. And that's literally, that will change your life. So scaffolding up these things it's exhilarating. And then these aren't chores, by the way, really importantly. This isn't more stuff you have to do. It's no, I want to be heroic. These are gifts I'm giving to myself.
Yeah.
I want to be at my best. Again, these guys last night, boom, they're hungry. They want to, do the heroic in their own, sport. But we need to have that ambition that's grounded to something bigger than ourselves, and then the willingness to show up and do the hard work to cultivate the strength for 2 and get out of the nihilism, the cynicism, the whatever, and really go all in on life, which is a big part of the first objective as well.
Yeah. which we'll come back to. Okay, this might be a good place to ask about the victim inside each of us and why this is so hard for some of us. So I think because you're into personal development, you've probably seen over the years with family and friends, there's some folks that no matter how many tools are thrown at them, they can't seem to make any progress. And some of those folks might blame someone else, or they blame themselves. Right? It's, oh, I'm such a loser. They're very low self-worth, or it's everybody else's fault and it's not my responsibility here. How do you coach people there? What's your advice if we're feeling that way, or if we have a family member who, really, or a partner who's really stuck there? Like, how do they even relate to the hero and making the journey here?
Yep. I am a huge fan of focusing on oneself. Anytime that someone goes through our programs, I'm like, hey, my partner, this and that. I'm like, yeah, great. You got more than enough to do on yourself. How about we focus on you?
Exactly.
And then we'll focus on you some more. And then we're going to focus more on you. And then we're going to focus more on you. And then you become the best, most heroic version of yourself. Then all of a sudden, people are leaning in and they're saying, what are you doing? And you've really changed. And so I'm a huge advocate of not coaching somebody else, full stop, period, unless they ask for it. And they're going to ask for it after you change. Yep. So I like to focus on that. And the main shift is simple. A victim complains, criticizes, gossips, blames, all these other things. The creator and the hero doesn't, full stop. So first and foremost, don't criticize. Don't complain. Don't blame. You're giving up all of your power, all of your agency. You can be frustrated with life. I have no problem with that. But then the question is, what do you want? So the shift is really simple. Victim to creator to hero is, what do I want in my life? Got a health challenge, got a work challenge, got a relation. Perfect. What do you want? We call it targeted thinking. You radically accept your current reality. And then you say, what do I want? And then you say, well, what do I need to do to get that? Yeah. And then repeat that relentlessly. Now, of course, we're going to get knocked down, but give yourself 60 seconds, 2 minutes, 3 minutes, 5 minutes to complain, criticize, blame, then pull it together. Mm-hmm. And again, step up, move forward. And the key tool that I personally use, that I teach my kids, I talk about it in the book as well, using my son. What do you want? All right, is your current behavior helping you get what you want? If it is, then keep on doing it. If it's not, consider changing that. And again, I'm deliberately hyperbolically oversimplifying it, but it is that simple. Yeah. Not easy, but it is that simple.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. One of your chapters is complain for 60 seconds and move on.
Relentless solution focus. Jayson Selk, we have to thank for that. Yeah. It's like, perfect. All right. It's over. Set the stopwatch. Yep. You're complete. Now, what do you want? What do you want about it?
Okay, let's rewind to the ultimate game. Know the ultimate game. I think this is important to come back to for context, right? What is the ultimate game? What do you mean by that?
Yep. So if you asked every single ancient wisdom, philosopher, faith tradition, etc., and modern science affirms what the ultimate game of life is, they give you the exact same answer, which is, in short, be the best version of yourself in service to something bigger than yourself. Now, we've been seduced by society to go after fame, wealth, and hotness, the extrinsic motivators. But even if you are successfully pursuing those things, you will be less psychologically stable, scientists tell us, than those who are going after the intrinsic motivators of becoming a better person, deepening relationships, and making a contribution. Not Instagram followers measured, fame, wealth, and hotness style, and nothing wrong with that. But if that's your predominant focus, you will be less psychologically stable. So the ultimate game is be your best self in service of something bigger than yourself. And this is a 2,500-year-old challenge. The Stoics and Socrates would talk about the choice of Hercules. He was seduced by the goddess of vice who called herself happiness, seeking hedonic pleasure instead of eudaimonic. The Bhagavad Gita, 2,000 something years ago, is set on a battlefield representing the metaphorical battle within our consciousness between vice and virtue. All traditions talk about this. And again, this is why Arte is the one-word summation of all of that. In any given moment, you have a choice. Be your best self or not. That's the ultimate game. And when you do that, again, you feel a deep sense of grounded, calm, joyful meaning and purpose.
Yeah. And you're living with purpose every day, right? You're in pursuit of being your best self. There's no maybe summit, right? There's no, like, I think some people get seduced into enlightenment, or there is a summit. And once I do X, Y, and Z and I reach my peak performance goal or whatever, I'm somehow going to be there and I don't have to do shit after that.
Exactly. So Phil Stutz would say, you're never going to be exonerated. There's no there is how I like to put it. He says you will never be exonerated from three things: pain, uncertainty, and hard work. And your story that you should be there is the greatest source of your suffering. Full stop. So when you embrace your pain, your uncertainty, your hard work, when you realize that discomfort you feel in life is a good thing and you lean into it, you approach your challenges, you approach becoming that next best version of yourself, life takes on a whole nother meaning. And it goes from chores and joyless urgency to a sense of privilege, frankly, a blessed opportunity to be here right now, living the life you're living, and doing your best in the service of something bigger than yourself. And again, the anti-fragile confidence comes back into this discussion, because rule number one is it's supposed to be hard. So you've been seduced to play the wrong game, and you've been seduced to think it's supposed to be easy. So when you fall short, you think something's wrong with you.
Yeah.
So we start tweaking these few little intellectual frames and then start living in integrity with those higher goals and purposes. Again, everything changes. I mean, it's a subtle yet really, really significant, profound shift.
So I love your work because it's long game focused. Be your best self doesn't happen right now. I mean, master your day or whatever, treat your day like a masterpiece. Yeah, I get that. But you understand this, like it is a hero's journey, like Joseph Campbell said, right? To become who we are. And that's hard.
Yeah. And then
there's a hardness to it, right? That's like, you're not apologizing about that.
Yeah. And for sure. But then I would connect the long game with right now. So it's yes. Yeah. But it's yes, I'm playing the long game and there is no there's no summit yet. I've got goals that I'm excited about. And the exciting thing is you win right now. The moment you close the gap, the moment you live with Arte, you are heroic. You don't need to wait 30 days or 30 years. Boom. You feel it. You know you did your best. And if you can more consistently, never perfectly, but more consistently express that best version of yourself, again, you feel a joy right now. You don't need to wait. And even right now, I can choose to answer the call to adventure and respond with intensity and with what I feel I need to go, and without inhibition, without hopefully being off the rails and all that stuff. But life is about one hero's journey after another, moment to moment to moment. Mm-hmm. So not only do you take more than one hero's journey in a lifetime, if you're doing it right, you're taking 1,000 a day, because there's always these little micro moments of, do I do this or do I do that? Maslow says, do I step forward into growth or back into safety? Forward into growth, back into safety. And +1, -1. If you are not expressing yourself over a course of a day, those are the days when the gap gets bigger and you want to numb yourself at the end of the day. So the hero's life is one micro journey after another, but you feel the joy of being your best self. It's not something you need to wait for in the abstract. It's Eckhart Tolle's power of now, but in a, we aspire to make it a deeply operationalized, engaged, humble yet heroic way,
Yeah. Thanks for that reminder. Yeah. There's like a daily practice of mine is to ask myself two questions. Do I like who I am and how I'm doing my life? Just every day. And then if I answer no to that, it's like, okay, what needs to change? What needs to shift? Because I want fulfillment, right? I'm after a fulfilling life. And you don't need to wait until you achieve X amount of dollars or relationship to be fulfilled. I hear you saying every day can be fulfilling, engaging in the journey.
Every moment. And I mean that literally. Yeah. And that's the only thing we have. Days don't exist, really. I mean, that's an abstract. Right. Even yesterday in my talk, carpe diem? No. Carpe punctum. Seize the moment. It's the only thing we have power of. And oh, wait, it's gone. Yeah. The moment. Oh, shoot, that's gone. And so it's that moment to moment engagement with life where you're bringing your energy, you're focusing in on what's important right now. And when you do that consistently, this is the final objective. We call it the soul force equation. Boom. So yes, to all of that, with the continued driving down into, but this is a moment to moment deal. And that's exhilarating because the moment you flip on the light, a lot of great spiritual teachers say the room is lit.
Yeah.
And the might go back off, but the moment you turn it back on, boom, you're connected to something bigger than yourself. And then again, the days that I used to go off the rails, I still have highs and lows, of course, because we're human and we're all going to have that. But the days that I used to go off the rails, that I just make it work, and I play poorly well, is how the mental toughness guys put it in sports. Mm-hmm. Those are my best days because I brought it. What my best sucked, let's say, to where I wanted it to be, but it was so much better than what I used to do that Goosebumps, I have so much pride in those days.
Nice.
And that's what but the greatest among us know that the greatest among us know how to play poorly well. Mm-hmm. The amateur has a rough day and they go off the rails. So a golfer that has a bad shot. Oh God, I had a bad shot. Then you watch him just crumble. The great golfers like Jack Nicklaus, for example, he knows he's going to have 5 bad shots in a round. So when he has the first one, you go, there's one of them. Boom. He's a professional. Things go wrong in his profession.
Yeah.
And he doesn't get emotional about it. He then focuses on the next moment.
Right.
That's what I'm talking about. And again, we apply that to our lives, in our work, in our love. And there's, again, something that's hard to put into words that's like palpably exciting about that. When we don't say, yeah, I got that, but we actually live it, there's a level of as close to invincibility as we're going to get, because we allow ourselves to be human, imperfect, yet functioning at higher and higher levels,
Yeah, amazing. Thanks for the granularity, reminding me the moment, not the day. I love that. Hey there, every week I send out an email toward the end of the week giving you a tip or a pointer on personal growth, psychology, communication, and of course, relationships. If you want to receive that, go to relationshipschool.com/newsletter and make sure you're on my list so that I can send you these emails. I think they're awesome, high quality content coming your way. Let's come back to optimize your big 3, and specifically because this is a relationship podcast, talk about the love piece. I'm so curious what you would say there. What do you mean optimize love?
Yeah, so the big 3 real quick. I got overwhelmed by Stephen Covey and Tony Robbins. They talk about roles and goals. You got to have roles with goals, and categories of improvement is how Tony put it. But I had like this infinite list. It just didn't end. And so I just got overwhelmed and I gave up. Freud said that a good life comes down to 2 things, work and love. To which I said, one of the few things I agree with him on, yes. And if your energy sucks because of poor lifestyle choices, good luck showing up in your work and your love. So we call it big 3, energy, work, and love. You get your energy dialed in through the fundamentals. You get your productivity dialed in through things I talk a lot about. But frankly, that's easy for ambitious men. For most of us, we got challenges, but energy and work, whatever, autopilot for me.
Yeah.
And not without challenges, but easy. Love is the hard one. And especially the ambitious men that I work with, it's like, all right, cool. How do I do this? But to state the obvious, love is some would say everything, and the hero's secret weapon is love. So the word hero in Greece, ancient Greece, meant protector. So a hero's secret weapon literally was love, was compassion. They cared so much about people that they weren't complaining and pulling the covers over their heads. They were going out and doing the things that get done to protect and to serve. That's love in action. But anyway, I focus on helping individuals get clarity on identities from which they aspire to live in their energy, work, and love. And then the virtues they embody, and then the things they do specifically. So for example, in my love, in the heroic app, my identity is I'm a joyful soulmate. And soul means something for me. It's eudaimon, good soul, right? So we all had our daimon, our soul. Right now, I'm connecting soul to soul with you. It's an explicit commitment I make to myself every morning. My wife, my kids, my soulmates, my team, my community, anyone listening to here right now, that's my commitment. And this is an act of love for me. Work and love, what's the difference when you're doing it right?
Right.
But then every morning I do a few things. So I recommit to being with my wife for 51 years and being worthy of being with her. I recommit, it takes me seconds in our app, to being with best friends with my adult kids. I think about that. They're 11 and 6, but I think about, I want to be best friends with them, full stop. I want to be their kid's beloved papa. I literally spend a second every morning committing to that. Boom. Okay, I can see that. And then I'm looking for micro moments of awesome is what I call it, which is scientifically grounded. These tiny little moments of connection with my kids, with you right now. I can be at Whole Foods. I'm going through the line. I'm thinking, I want to connect with this person. I'm going to put my screen down and I'm going to connect with them. There's a neuroscience to that. We crave that connection, but I explicitly look for that and commit to it every morning. And then the number one thing that I understand to be most important from the research is bids. So John Gottman, the great research scientist, can study people, as you know, for a half an hour in his lab and predict who's going to get divorced or not with 90% accuracy. And one of the variables he measures is whether they're turning toward one another and responding or away from one another and responding to bids. So it's the tiny, tiny, tiny little things that I look for. So for example, with my kids, hey, daddy is a bid. Yeah. Now I can turn toward them and go, oh yeah, let me look at her art project, or let me look at his chess game, or let me look at the Lego set, and spend a minute or two or three, boom, connected. Those little micro moments, responding to those bids. Your wife saying, hey, honey, or whatever the equivalent would be, those are bids that I literally explicitly am looking for throughout the day. And it's those very mundane, again, easy to overlook things that I have found to be most transformative. Yeah. And again, knowing who you are at your best, what virtues you want to embody, and what specifically you're going to do. Those are some of the ways that we've tried to operationalize love. And this is right up there with forging anti-fragile confidence. One of the things I'm most proud of, helping especially ambitious guys figure out how to be integrated and how to have deeper connections and relationships by doing some of the things we're talking about.
Yeah. Thank you for doing that with the brothers out there. Yeah, so good. I am so curious, just a kind of a tangential question. You strike me as like an extraordinary learner. You're just very committed to learning. And you see my story as you're very good at that. And then you can synthesize information and kind of bring it into share it with others. I'm really curious just about your personal, like reading, journaling practices. How do you learn? Like what these days, I'm sure it's changed over the years, but what's like a moment look like in Brian Johnson's world when he's devouring a book or reflecting on himself? How does that go down?
Yeah, I appreciate that. Kind of that question, that frame for me to go deeper into it. It starts with the intensity. So I'm all in. I haven't had a TV in 20 years. You know, I remember 20 years ago, my wife and I, 18 years ago, we were watching some pre-Netflix series before they really had them. It was Heroes or something like that, ironically. And I was dreaming of these people. And it was one of those moments of like, I don't want to dream about fictional characters. That's insane. And it was the last time I've watched something like that 18 years ago, 17, 16 years ago. So there's an obsession, a healthy obsession, but a relentless pursuit of my own mastery, of myself, of my craft. I've dedicated my life to being as great as I can be at helping people understand these ideas. So I think it's that 451, 2200 degrees where I've structured my life where I've gone, years without using a phone. Like that's how intense I've gone in going deep on this. I've distilled over 600 ancient wisdom and modern science books into those philosopher's notes. It started as 100. I've got 650, done. So there's just this relentless pursuit for my own excellence and helping others frame it up. And then practically speaking, when I'm in that mode, I'm kind of part philosopher, part CEO. So, I read Arnold's new book is fantastic. I love his humanity. I love his ambition and his integration. Dude, I read it cover to cover while waiting for my son in a chess tournament one Sunday. Boom, I get in and I'm in. And I finish what I start. And then I've got this really systematic way now, as you can imagine, having read as much as I have, of I'm hunting for big ideas. So literally, I'm like an archaeologist going through a book. I'm marking it up. I got this folding thing where I know if I'm going to want to share it in a philosopher's note, I like fold the page over in half. If it's kind of good, it's, a little bit less than that. But I'm constantly hunting for ideas that I can apply. And then I'm trying to figure out how I can communicate it. And then it's reps. I've done an insane number of reps, Like I talk to my kids about this. How do you get good at anything? How do you get good at anything? They'll answer you in a single word instantly. You practice. Yeah, exactly. So I have just done it again and again and again. And then there's like this spider webbing that has kind of happened for me in my consciousness, where now I can see, oh, yeah, this person says that and this person says that. And the pattern recognition is kind of deepened. But it's the constant immersion that I think has helped me getting more and more clarity. And then I've also shipped a ton creatively. So I've set myself to high standards and a cadence of accountably sharing things with our community and the membership platform we have, that I had to get really comfortable shipping things that I wasn't comfortable shipping over and over and over again. And I think the constellation of those things has contributed to kind of my processes.
Yeah, it's really inspiring, dude. I just sort of imagine also you forged a certain level of discipline with that obsessive kind of focus and inspiration that you have, the 451. Would you say discipline also? Like you're very good at like blocking out the noise and just going deep on.
You know, I'm ruthless. Like I will literally, I mean, unapologetically, and this is David Brooks at Stephen Covey, you've got to have a soul aching yes. Then it makes it easy to say no. And I'm more fiercely ambitious than I've ever been. I got Lincoln next to Ralph Waldo Emerson. Lincoln was insanely ambitious. He wanted to be remembered. He wanted to make a contribution and be remembered in the book of humanity. And a book called Leadership in Turbulent Times, Doris Kearns Goodwin, my all-time favorite philosopher's note, is on that book. Cal Newport actually sent it to me. But she talks about Lincoln, Teddy Roosevelt, Franklin D. Roosevelt. Very, very different men. But they all had one thing in common, which was fierce ambition, which, by the way, is another thing I think men are missing these days. I certainly went through a really strong ambivalent stage, kind of Ken Wilber, you know, you got it, then you don't have it, but then you need to come back to it, transcending the prior levels, where you're much more humble, you're integrated, it's plugged into something bigger. But I think men in particular, are alienated from their ambition. They've been toxic about it, but now it's like, nah. And then there's a bit of cynicism toward people that have it, which goes back to the intensity. And from my vantage point, good luck with that, because you've got a certain calling. You have gifts you need to give to the world. Abraham Maslow says you have capacities clamoring to be used. To the extent you are not using them, you will suffer. Full stop. He's more intense than me. You know, with the way he shows up and telling us what one can be, one must be, that gap, it's a painful place, you know? So anyway, me embracing my ambition has also driven my ability to say yes to my own creative goals and how I want to contribute, which has made it easy to say no, is why I went there. So wisdom and discipline are the two virtues that I'm most committed to embodying, with love and courage, but that fierceness of, this is what I want, this is the price I'm going to need to pay. Yeah, perfect. Let me go pay it. And today's the day, you know?
Yeah, so it's great. I just feel myself kind of relaxing, just hearing it's okay to be ambitious. Like, because in the personal growth world, there can also be a stigma around like the Ennea type 3 being this neurotic person who's just achieving to get validation or something, instead of, no, you're fucking inspired. Like, it's okay to be that inspired and just go after your dreams and be ruthless about it.
Dude, goosebumps. I'm a 3 as well, of course, and goosebumps. And we talk about it in the 7th objective. I think there's a really, really warped conception with not only ambition, but the ego and what a healthy human being looks like. Yeah. And there's a lot of spiritual teachers from Ken Wilber, Richard Rohr, Nathaniel Branden, guys like Joseph Campbell. You better get yourself together. Yeah. And again, human beings, what one can be, one must be. To the extent you aren't embracing that, it's a lot easier to criticize ambitious people. This isn't new either, though. You know, Nietzsche, worst of all, they hate those who fly. They're going to tear off your wings. You know, they'll celebrate all your vices, but your virtues, no, that's what they're going to persecute you for. All right, cool. You know, perfect. And again, we don't need to be mean-spirited about it, and we aren't being, but we just need to do what we're here to do. And in a world in which those who may not be as committed to the virtues we're talking about are as ambitious as they are, we step up. I mean, you tell me how we're going to solve these challenges with dudes and women. Oh, whatever. You know, it's not cool to be too intense. What are you waiting for? And again, you look at these humble heroes. Again, we work with SEALs and other people in that world, like the level of dedication, the level of unbelievable standards to which they hold themselves in service to their country, their team, their family, and then themselves. I mean, the true love and heroism of these men and women on the literal front lines. It's like, I just want to show up a fraction of what they're doing, you know what I mean? And give back equal measure. So yeah, it's funny you should say that you're relaxing in the midst of my intensity too. That gives me goosebumps again. Like, that's a beautiful thing to feel that permission, you know, to be us, which is ultimately what it's all about in all of our, one of my virtues I commit to every morning is unapologetically intense. You know, I drove with the brakes on for decades, and I want to stay grounded and calm and confident and all things, but tranquil. But yeah, man, I feel it, and it's exciting to imagine us simmering. You know what I mean? And getting to that activation energy point. Literally, me and you, and then the men and women that we're honored to be in dialogue with right now.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, as I wind down, I'm super, I can feel my own juices getting really energized just, with your vibe and your commitment to being you and to growing, and to serving in the way that you just serve. It's really inspiring. Let me back up one step just real quick. The Lincoln book you mentioned what was the name of that book?
Dude, it's called Leadership, subtitle In Turbulent Times. The author is Doris Kearns Goodwin. It's just phenomenal.
Okay. You also mentioned a couple other authors I like, Richard Rohr, Wilbur, of course.
Yep.
Anyway, there's some...
Nathaniel Branden is wonderful as well. I find him to be super inspiring. And then, of course, Joseph Campbell.
Yeah, completely. Okay. Well, we're at the buzzer here. I've got a couple more questions for you and then we'll wrap up. One is, one of my heart sort of longings is to help young people be more, go into the world more sound relationally, and to, we live in such a divided world that, my mission is to heal that divided world, and knowing that I'm not going to actually get there, but I'm going to die trying. And I just want young people to have tools, right, to navigate conflict, to learn how to love someone well. And if I had a room full of 1,000 high schoolers, and you were there standing next to me, and we could only share one thing about love or relationships, what would you tell that group of kids?
Beautiful vision to imagine being with those kids. I would kind of echo a theme that we explored before. I redefine love, where there's love in intimate relationships, there's love in interpersonal relationships with people we don't know, but then there's love 0.0 with yourself. And it's very difficult to give or receive love if you aren't giving and receiving love with yourself. So I would bring it right back to you, the individual, the high school kid sitting here listening, and think about what idea that Jayson and I just talked about most resonated, that you need to move from theory to practice to mastery on, and build that sense of that healthy ego container, to use that phrase, of you being a healthy, flourishing, happy, aspiring, heroic version of yourself. That's the version of you that's going to the version of you that's most connected to your highest self is the version of you that's going to be able to most deeply connect to all the people with whom you want to have deeper relationships. So paradoxically, we don't go out, we go in order to be that centered, calm, confident, wise, disciplined, loving, courageous, grateful, hopeful, curious, zesty human being. And then the relationship is exponentially harder. Once you bring one other person in, it just goes up. Then you bring two kids and you're like, what? A level of difficulty here, folks. So that's why I always come back to, no, let's go here, and again, you're eating, you're moving, you're sleeping, you're breathing, you're focusing your own ultimate game, your own anti-fragile confidence, your own big three, your own today's the day, all the things we just talked about is it. You activate your soul force, which Gandhi named, Martin Luther King talked about, and you have a radiance about it, that we're neurologically programmed to want to connect to people like that. That's why all the ancient Chinese philosophers taught their leaders how to cultivate wu wei, effortless right action. There's a moral charisma to people who are living in integrity with their values that people feel connected to. Literally, before you even do anything, there's a connection. goosebumps. I say that yet again. That's the most loving thing you can do, is to do what you need to do to be that version of you. And then there's all the other, practical things that I appreciate you doing so well at such a high level, but that's kind of where I come.
Yeah.
And what I would love to share with those kids. But more than anything, dude, I'd want me and you to be there as the radiant exemplar of the men that they may aspire to be.
Yeah.
That's the biggest lesson. Just standing there, dude.
Right.
Before we say anything, it's like, I look at me in high school. If my high school version of me, someone asked me, what would you tell your 10-year-old or whatever version of you, 15-year-old? And I thought about it and I'm like, I would want them to see me and to feel me and say, I like that guy. Yeah. I want to be like that guy. You know what I mean? That radiant exemplar, that who you are speaks so loudly. Like, before we'd open our mouth, dude, they've already felt us. They've already interpreted whether or not we're credible, whether or not we're going to say anything that's true. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Again, long answer now to your great question.
Yeah. Maybe we'll end up standing next to each other someday there. Okay. Final thoughts, Brian. That was a tremendous amount. I'm so grateful. I have this book sitting next to me that I'm still working on, and we'll talk about where to get that in a minute, but final parting words here.
Just thank you, man. I appreciate you. This was a wonderful conversation. Really appreciate the work that you're doing and who you are as a man and a father and a coach, and imagining you and your son doing what you're doing together. It just inspires me. So bless you and thank you.
Yeah. Thanks, Brian. Appreciate it, dude. Okay. Where can people find the book and you and your app and all the things?
Yeah, so the app, it's called Heroic. It's a social training platform. You can find it in your iOS and Android stores. Just search Heroic. We're the training platform. And then heroic.us on the web. And then the book, Arete, Arete. You can learn more about it at heroic.us/book for a free, whatever, forward chapters and audiobook and stuff. And then you can get it anywhere you get books. My kind of playful little boy version of me, like, that's cool. We're in FedEx. So everywhere you can buy books, airports and all that stuff. FedEx. I'm like, kind of always when I went to Kinko's back in the day, I'm like, that'd be cool to have a book there, So that's kind of fun. But wherever you get books, would be honored if you pick it up, and hope you love it.
Yeah, and guys, it's so good. And it's a big book, but don't be intimidated because the chapters are like 1 to 2 to 3 pages long, and you can literally flip to any page and dive right in and get a huge nugget for your day. I mean, it's that awesome. So I think this is a game-changing personal development book, dude. I'm stoked to just support it and support you.
I appreciate you, man. Thank you, Jayson.
Yeah, thanks, Brian.